Hello, AniCod here and welcome to another Rust video. Today we're going to go through the epic LR-300 assault rifle, by far one of the best weapons in the game, hands down. A lot of the video I'm going to be comparing it to the AK, or assault rifle. It's an AK, we all know it's an AK. Because I think out of the top tier guns, these two are probably the more similar. Now the good thing about an LR is although you can't craft it, you can find it relatively easily, usually in oil rig crates or the timed lock crates that you can find at the monuments. I've even seen heavy scientists drop these a couple of times. If you're still struggling to find one, then you can buy one at the bandit camp for 500 scrap. Granted, 500 scrap early game is quite a lot, especially when you're researching, but later stage when scrap's pretty much useless to you, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to have a full arsenal of these things back at base. Sorry. So what makes it good then? Well, my opinion is the recoil. It's much more user friendly than the AK and much easier to land multiple shots at long range. Look at the group I'm getting here. With a little practice, you can turn the LR into a laser, and it's all about learning the spray pattern. I'm an LR god! So the standard damage with a 5.56 rounds is about 40. If you land your shots, that's 160 DPS at 500 RPM. Now, I know I'm throwing all these numbers and letters at you, so let me explain. DPS means damage per second, and RPM is the rounds per minute. That's effectively your fire rate. It's a highly customizable weapon, which means you can attach pretty much everything, and the attachments, depending which one you use, can increase or decrease your damage, your fire rate, all that sort of stuff. We're going to cover this a little bit later on. So how does what we've discussed so far stack up to the AK? Yeah, I'm calling it an AK. Well, the AK does 50 damage, which means you can down a fully healed naked with 2 body shots. The RPM is slightly low at 450, but because the damage is so high, the DPS for this weapon is 181. So the AK is better then? Well, no. It's all about landing your shots, and you do that by using a weapon you feel more comfortable with. An average LR player will destroy an average AK player at mid to long range because the recoil is way more manageable. If you miss with the LR, the extra 50 FPS will spit out another bullet faster than the AK will, and that could be the difference between winning and losing a firefight. Granted, there is AK players out there, I'm sure some are watching this video, that know the AK spray pattern like the back of their hand, and they can turn the AK into a laser at 1,000 yards. If you're coming up against these players, then no matter what weapon you're using, you pretty much got no chance. Now, as I mentioned before, the LR is highly customizable. You have got 3 slots for items, generally a sight, a muzzle and an underbarrel. Please be careful when you're selecting your attachments because they all have perks and drawbacks. If you're using an LR with no attachments, you will build up a muscle memory when using it at a high fire rate. If you then go and sling a muzzle brake on it, for example, you're going to need to adjust and retrain yourself to get your shooting back on track because the muzzle brake will lower the recoil to 50%. So it's just something to watch out for. Now, once you pick an attachment, personally I would stick to it, don't keep changing it, and you will thank me later for that tip. So as for the muzzle, you can fit a silencer. This greatly reduces recoil by 20%, again making the LR better at long range. However, the drawbacks are reduced damage and velocity by 25%. This means with a silencer, the LR will only do 30 damage and the range will be greatly shortened. If you use a silencer every day, you'll probably be called a virgin 2 by the pro players on the map. No one wants to deal with that hurt on Rust. For me, stick to using silencers for raiding with explosive rounds. It does cut down the sound to reduce chances of a counter raid, and you can keep your dignity intact. You can also get a muzzle brake, as I mentioned before. These are good for the newer players. It will cut your recoil by a massive 50%. It'll lower your damage and velocity by 20%, but if that means you can get more rounds hitting your target, then 30 or so damage is better hitting than a weapon that does 50 that you can't land a shot with. You'll also get an epic looking brick on the end of the muzzle too, with a ridiculous sideways flash. I love it. When you use this attachment, people will call you a noob. Little better than being called a virgin, but bear this in mind when you select what you want to use. The final attachment is a muzzle boost, and as the name suggests, it boosts your bullets because science. Your fire rate will increase to 550 RPM. This won't do significantly more damage though, because there is a 10% drop in that aspect with this attachment. Moving on to the underbarrels, you can get a laser, pretty laser. At night it looks epic. You don't even have to ADS, just point the laser at something fleshy, hit the trigger, and your bullet will land there. If you want to blind some foes, you can attach a flashlight, what I don't know what I said. Really good if you live in a cave, but normally unless you're a night owl and you love it when people take pot shots at you from across the map, I wouldn't bother using one. For sights, you can get a handmade sight that looks way better now than when it was prior update. For those players what have been playing a while, it was the crappy little cross that you used to get. The holographic, which is personally my favourite, love the holographic on this weapon. Not just cosmetics, even though that's what Rust is all about. Just walk around looking good and claiming you made other players' mums pregnant. That's pretty much Rust in a nutshell. You can get an 8x scope, which is more of a medium to long range. Not too great at close quarters, but it is a bit of a laser beam when you're using it. Not a bad choice really. And then you've got the 16x. Personally, I think this is absolute garbage. I'm sure I'm going to get some hate in the comments down below, but personally I just wouldn't bother. If you're going to use this scope, I'd make sure you use it on a weapon worthwhile, like the L96 for example, especially if you want to push your range out that far. So again, I can't really tell you the best attachments because it all depends on you. Personally, I would just go with the hollow sight and that's it. I'd build up your muscle memory and you'll be lasering this weapon in no time. Until they bring out extended mags and customizable stocks, the stats for this weapon are pretty linear. On paper, it's not as good as the AK, it's a little harder to come by than the AK2, but my god, it's certainly up there with the best. Let me know what you think of the LR in the comments down below. I hope you've enjoyed the video. It's slightly different to the normal ones. If you've enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more Rust videos. If you've watched it this far, let me know you're a legend in the comments down below and I'll give you a little heart. Check out the description down below as well and you'll see all the links to my social media sites so you can keep a close eye on me. Really appreciate it. Thank you all, I really do mean it, and I'll see you in the next video.